Hey guys, we're having dinner right now with Jim. I know you guys have been waiting a long time for this one. It's coming out right now. Please comment Save the Children below to help us with the algorithm. You guys know that's hard to overcome. And buy a ticket to Sound of Freedom. Love you all. Enjoy the show.
This is to all of the agents that are out there that are very well aware of what's going on with the children, that know a lot and that are scared from coming forward. You know, I saw, I did the Passion of the Christ, and when the movie was over, two people that had committed murder came forward and turned themselves in. That was how powerful that film is. This one has the reverse. You watch it, you feel God's love and the power in this movie, Sound of Freedom, and it makes you unafraid. I was willing to come forward and speak truthfully on things like adrenochrome, organ harvesting, and was severely reprimanded by much of the media. And they claimed their fact checkers knew more, but they don't know like you guys know. I put you up against them anytime. And so, but it was a burden that I was no longer burdened with anymore. My career, I would never put in front of the children. And I just ask you to look in your heart, to go to the film Sound of Freedom, which is a phenomenal movie which represents you, and let that be your word against what these liars have done for a long, long time. Your word, which is from God, and to speak the truth to the American people. My prayers are with you. I love you guys. Thank you for all the help that you gave me.
Jim Caviezel,
Hey, Shawn.
thank you for coming. It's a real honor to be sitting across from you right now with all the work that you've done. And just thank you.
Thank you, Shawn. Pleasure to be here.
We have a lot to talk about. So just a quick intro, actor, Christian, husband, father, abolitionist, acting for 30 plus years. You're a devout Catholic. You allow your faith to guide you on the projects that you choose. You've been married since 1996, which is incredible. Congratulations. You are a father to 3 adopted children from China, 2 with brain tumors and 1 that had cancer. Amazing. Amazing. How are they?
They're doing great. Yeah, we're very, very blessed.
How old are they?
The oldest is 23,
Oh, amazing.
then 21, and then the youngest is 13.
How old were they when you adopted them?
The 2 oldest were 5 when we got them, and then the youngest was just a year old.
That's amazing.
And we didn't know what was going to happen. I just finished the Passion, and our first, the producer of the Passion, his wife Susie, was in the back of the church, and she had a picture of this little Chinaman with a tumor on the top of his head. And she says, "Will you adopt him?" And I was looking at his eyes, and I heard Jesus say to me from the little boy's mouth, he said, "Will you love me?" And I said, "Yes." So she asked me, "Will you adopt him?" But I wanted to do more than that. So that began the first of the adventure, and my wife heard the words, "Take the ones I send you."
Wow.
Yeah,
That is, thank you for sharing that.
sure.
That's incredible. So, I just found faith a couple months ago. I grew up a Catholic, and when I joined the SEAL teams and some of the things that I saw just destroyed my faith for the better part of 20 years
That you saw in the SEAL teams or that you saw in your faith?
in the SEAL teams.
Okay.
And that just carried on until literally a couple months ago. I had a pretty profound incident. The way I describe it is everywhere I looked, I hated what I saw, and I started vocalizing it. And we had a discussion just before filming about this, but it was just everything. It was the stuff that I'm seeing happening to children, the pedophilia, the surgeries, the puberty blockers, the abortions, all of it, and everything else that's encompassing our country right now and the world. And when I started vocalizing it, I hit a point. There was a day where God showed up, and instead of everywhere I looked, what I hated, everywhere I looked, he was right there talking to me. And literally, I had 5 or 6 different things happen within 48 hours, and it was incredible. But so I think it's very not ironic, not a coincidence that you're here just a couple months later, and I've had some other interviews that we discuss. We go into this in detail, but everybody on the show always gets a gift, and usually it's a bag of Vigilance Elite gummy bears from my company. But for you, I wanted to give you this rosary.
Oh.
And so I want to tell you about that rosary. When I found my faith, I got public about it, and a good friend of mine, his name's Dom Razzo, we were together at SEAL Team 2, and then he went on to development group SEAL Team 6. And when he saw that I'd come out and announced my faith, he sent me that rosary to give me protection, and I've carried it with me every day since.
My goodness.
And with the stuff that you're about to uncover with this new film,
Yeah.
Sounds of Freedom, I think maybe you're going to need some of that protection. So it's my honor to pass that on to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But I remember having a conversation with Sean Penn a long time ago when we were doing the Thin Red Line. And he asked me a lot of questions about faith and everything. And the character that I was in the film was named Whit, Private First Class Whit, in the World War II film. And Sean and I would, like in the morning and the night, would go run and stuff. And he mentioned to me about, all this stuff in the church and things going on. Why? And I said, there's a place in the Bible, John the Baptist, when he cried out, here's a guy that lived on locusts and honey and had, nothing. And he lived on every breath from God. His own father, Zechariah, doubted God. So I imagine that when he was born, he had to go out and find another father, the real father, adopted father. And at some point, God taught him everything, how to, every breath of God, knew it. And once he understood it, he was like probably 2-3 people showed up. It was like a needle in a haystack. They found him, and their hearts got on fire. And then they went and told the people in the temple, and they all started coming out, but not in, first probably 10, 20, and eventually in the thousands were there. And Jesus often mentions these Pharisees, the priests at the time, like to admire their own phylacteries, their own robes and everything, you see. They sat at the highest places. And eventually, they had no more audience, see. They were out with John. the Baptist. They went out to see him, and they thought, we need to recruit him over to our side. And eventually, they probably tried and then whatnot, and then he called them out. He says, "You brood of vipers, you den of thieves, and what you've done to the people, how you..." And he said, "Do you think because you're a Jew, you're getting into heaven? God could turn these stones into Jews." I thought of that myself, that I was given an incredible gift, but I'm always better actor with God. That he does something to me that's so much better, and so I'm a slave to him. I want to be. He's holy. I'm not whole. I'm not whole body, mind, and soul. I'm not without him. And I'll always, when I'm with people like Shawn Penn, who is brilliant, genius actor, I have a gift, but I'm so much better at my gift with him in me. There's a lot of temptations in the business, but I'm not an easy guy to love. So, I'm very fortunate that my wife, Carrie, loves me and my children love me, and I'm very content with that. But the gift really is, how many people I can help Jesus to lead to heaven, because ultimately that's where we need to be. Recently, a friend of mine, David Rodriguez, when we met back in 2004 when I did The Passion, and he was this big, incredible fighter he was, you see. But he started asking me stuff about The Passion. He said, "Do you actually believe in that stuff?" And I said, "I do." And it was worth everything. It was worth my life. Because when I first got into about 14 years old, really bad thing happened in Iran. I was running out on a road, and my feet were all cut up, and I didn't have any. I ran like 8 or 10 miles to my friend's house, and when I was doing G.I. Jane, Hashim Shalon, the guy next to me, was a SEAL like you, and he said, "You can't hurt us." And I remember thinking that when you're wounded in the heart, physically you can do anything to me, but because my heart was so wounded, and I asked God to help me, I reached a point where I didn't want to live any longer. And when people, especially now, the suicide rate is so high, and I always tell people that are out there thinking, "I want to end it," I said, "Can you imagine if I'd have ended it?" And when God would have said, "Look, you young man, boy, 14, 15, here's what I had planned for you." I was going to play his son. What a sad thing that would have been. But I cried out to God, and I asked, "Lord, what's my purpose? What do you want me to do in this life?" And he came to me in a movie theater. A presence came, 1,000, your soul knows this, but about 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards exactly, landed outside. His presence landed outside the theater. Now, you got to be careful when you ask God, "Tell me, what's my purpose?" I meant it. And he came into the theater, and I felt this love all around me. And this presence, it was as if I was God's only child. That's how much he loved me. That was everything to me. It meant everything that somebody out there loved me like that. And then the presence went from love to peace. I'd never felt this peace before. It was definitely from heaven. And then the voice said, "I'd like you to be an actor." And it left an indelible mark on my heart. At the time, I was like, I don't know anything about how to do that stuff. But I had no idea I had the gift. So I came to Hollywood, and And I had this vision where Jesus, how do I do it? But I had this vision that Jesus would always take care of me like a child, like a baby. And then it went from that to, this was 10 years of just, the difference between one of your team guys asked me about how hard was it? And I said, the only difference is I didn't have an instructor. I had to do it on my own. I had to look everything up. And it broke me. But I got up in the morning. My instructor was Jesus. I would go to Mass at 5:30 in the morning. 6:30, I get up at 5:30. I was at Mass at 6:30, and then I would go down and do what I knew. I was playing basketball. I played basketball for 18 years, played in college, and then that's all I knew. So I was working out with all the players down at Loyola Marymount and then UCLA, and eventually started doing workouts with NBA players and creating workouts for them. And at some point, I got an opportunity for the Thin Red Line, and it was 14 auditions later, I got the film. But what I loved about it was that, my friend Brett Barrett passed away. He said when I met Jim, he was guarding Paul Pierce, who's an NBA Hall of Famer, and he was talking smack to Paul Pierce. And I was, because my friend Phil Weber, who's a brilliant NBA coach and just a genius guru when it comes to just positive mental focus. And my dad played for Wooden at UCLA, but he had the pyramid of success. He had the industriousness, work ethic, and the enthusiasm. Those are the two corner blocks of the pyramid of success that never changed. And so that mentality, prodding Paul Pierce was like, I don't care. I'm not making the team. I just want to go to my auditions and have that fire in my gut to overcome the nervousness that you feel when you're about ready to perform.
Yeah.
And 14 auditions in a row, and it was always through this great spirit. It's the Holy Spirit, but it pushed through my mental and my physical at the highest level constantly, and kept me at the same time keeping me humble and content.
You had mentioned something happened when you were 8 that caused you to do that run. And if I heard you correctly...
14.
14?
Yeah.
What was that?
It's hard to answer because there's a forgiveness there, and bringing it up would do damage to that individual. But I've already forgiven that individual. Sometimes, like when we were doing the Passion of the Christ, the pain that I had to go through was so incredible. I was hypothermic. My makeup times were from 2 a.m. till 10, and from 10:30 to 4:30, I was freezing. Then, they had to take the skin, a new application that is now all Hollywood uses now. And those guys didn't even get an award for it. Christian Tinsley, Keith Vanderlyn, Christian Tinsley invented this during the scourging scenes. We used it, but it was burning my skin at the time. We were getting it down. And so I was in a lot of pain on that movie. And then I had to learn the Aramaic, the Hebrew, and the Latin. And so I only get 3 hours of sleep. Then I would get up, and then they created a cross with a bicycle seat in the middle, and then I'd hold my hand here, and they would tie it, and I'd just fall asleep standing or sitting on this little bicycle seat, and then the cold would hit again, and then eventually I got a pneumonia, and then it was on every antibiotic in the world, but I wasn't getting a rest, and so they would try to move me around, but and to do other scenes they could, but so during the one particular take, I had dislocated my shoulder, and I bit through my tongue, and it's the part where Mary comes over. And now, before that, I said, God, I'm done trying to do, there was a lot of frustrating things that were happening. I just said, God, I don't want them to see me. I only want them to see you. And that's when the whole film changed. But it came with the cross hitting me in the back of the head, biting through my tongue and my cheek, and then my mouth bouqueted with blood. And when you see me turn on this particular take, there's a stream of blood that is coming out of my mouth. And I turn to Mary and I say, Olu ami choda chadesh, behold, Mother, I make all things new. And at that point, then I take the cross. Now my shoulder's dislocated, and everything I got it over. I think that if you look deep, I don't like particularly drinking piss and vinegar, but if I have to, I will. And especially when the outcome is saving souls. And I go back to myself when I didn't feel like anybody did. And God said he did. And so I want to love him and bring as many souls as I could to him. So it was always in my intention in that film that when people see it, that they do not see me, that they only see Jesus.
It's not one of the most realistic film I've ever watched. And it really puts things into perspective. It did for me when I watched it. Backtracked in just a little bit, and then I want to ask you a couple more questions about The Passion. You mentioned forgiveness, and that whatever happened, it sounds like it was obviously very traumatic. I think a lot of people, including myself, struggle with forgiveness, with forgiving others, and maybe even forgiving themselves. And that creates a lot of toxicity, a lot of resentment, a lot of negative emotions. And how long did it take you to find how to forgive? I want to tell you all about this new meat delivery service I found called Moink. What I really like about Moink is they are from a small, rural farm town in Missouri, LaBelle, Missouri, right by where I grew up, and I love supporting small town business USA. Now, when I started looking into Moink, they educated me on the meat industry, and I want to share with you all a couple of facts, according to Moink magazine. 60% of all pork is produced by one company in the U.S., and that is 100% owned by the Chinese. 4 companies control over 80% of the meat industry in the United States. More than 10,000 different additives are allowed in the U.S. food supply. 99% of chicken, 95% of hogs, 78% of cattle in the U.S. are raised in confinement buildings or feedlots. It means they're not moving around freely. 80% of the antibiotics consumed in the U.S. are fed to animals. Here's a stat. In 2016, 18.4 million pounds of antibiotics were sold for livestock. And that's what you're eating. Suicide rates amongst farmers are the highest than any other profession, and that includes veterans, believe it or not. I found that alarming. Now, here's what Moink is doing to combat some of this stuff, which I really appreciate. Their livestock is 100% born and raised and harvested humanely in the United States of America. Their farms practice regenerative agricultural methods. They are free of GMOs, antibiotics, and all hormones. Their Alaska salmon is wild caught. Their beef and lamb are grass-fed and grass-finished. Their boxes ship from rural America, right in small-town Missouri. Love it. Their chicken and pork are pasture-raised. So, guys, check them out. Moink. Keep America farming going by signing up at moinkbox.com/SRS. Right now, listeners on this show get free bacon in your first box. It will be the best bacon you will ever taste, but it's only for a limited time. It's spelled Moink, MOINK, box.com/SRS. That's moinkbox.com/SRS. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a minute since I've done a Bubs Naturals commercial, but it has not been a minute since I've taken the best shit of my entire life. Actually, just knocked one out this morning. It was amazing. And I'm going to give you the secret. You ready? Here's the secret. You want the secret for the best shit of your entire life that you could do, I don't know, every day, maybe multiple times a day? Here's the secret. Bubs Naturals Collagen Peptide says it's good for joints, hair, skin, and nails. I'm surprised they don't put on there it'll give you the best shit of your entire life, but hey, I get it, right? And you mix that with the Halo Creamer, that's MCT oil. Put these two together, you're gonna have a explosive hell of a day. These things are both Whole30 approved, NSF certified, and USDA approved. So there's that. On top of that, hold on, wait, there's more. If that doesn't get you going, which I guarantee you it will, you've got Bubs New Coffee. So this is the first ever coffee bean Whole30 approved, if you can believe that. And we all know coffee can, speed things up a little bit in the morning. But hold on, wait, there's more. Apple cider vinegar gummies. Guys, I'm going to be honest, I don't know exactly what these things do for you, but here it says, promotes energy, immune support, promotes healthy digestion, and supports healthy metabolism. I can tell you one thing, good luck just eating one of these things, because at the end of the night, I will crush an entire bottle of these. That will not give you the best shit of your life. I wouldn't recommend it. It will speed things up, but you may not like the final outcome. And hold on, wait, there's more. There's more. Bubs came out with a lot of new products. They have these Hydrate or Die hydration packets, great for post-workout. All this stuff is great for post-workout, especially the collagen protein. Guys, here's another thing about Bubs. Bubs is a tribute company. It's named after Glenn Bubs Doherty, who was a Navy SEAL and a CIA contractor. He died defending our freedom in Benghazi, and Bubs donates a portion of every order to the Glenn Doherty Foundation, and they donate 100% of the proceeds from their products on Veterans Day every year. I love this company. They are just solid people with a solid product, and they just want everybody to experience the best shit of your life. Go to bubsnaturals.com, use the promo code Shawn for 20% off, and let's get it going.
Shawn, it's a journey. I think it's not, some people, I think it's instant. I think others, I think it continually, and I'll tell you this because there's pride involved in our whole makeup, and there's what are you listening to? There's two masters here. Because one of the masters obviously is the angel of light, the Lucifer. And but next to God's light is, you can see the darkness everywhere. When I focus on the scripture and I think of the things that I've done, that I've my own sin, and I shouldn't be forgiven for it, and he's willing to do that for me, then I have no choice but to do that for others. I'm not telling you that that person that is hurting you, you have to keep being with that person. Jesus clearly says at one point, dust the shoes off your sandals and move on. But you can pray for that individual. And here's when you think of principalities of good versus evil, every time you pray for them, you're moving angels in over them. So you're really afflicting them. They don't like the light on them. They want the demons around them. But by putting those angels around them, you bring light on them. And so then, but there's too many things to do in this world to just keep holding on to those things. And then you ultimately, for the love of, we were talking about my children earlier, for the love of my children and my wife, why afflict them with the vengeance that's eventually going to come out? And you're not going to be who you used to be. It's like Darth Vader, remember Star Wars? You become more mechanical and you lose the childlike quality in you. You're not free anymore. You're oppressed. My prayer has always been, can I imagine that individual that I want to hate to come back into the light again? Yes, if that's your purpose, then pray for them. That's the best chance they have ever coming back. I mean, if they're that dark and that evil. But there are sins that are unforgivable. And Jesus talks about those too. That's the rejection of the Holy Spirit. And that is a lot what is with this whole thing with the children, that many of them will never ever get a chance, because when a lot of these pedophiles, and when they do these sins, God is telling them, do you understand? This is it. And they do it anyway. And so let the dead bury their dead at that point.
I can't wait to dive into this subject. It's something that I made a promise to my audience that I would dive deep into this subject this year, and continue moving on. Back to the passion.
Yeah.
You had a extremely successful Hollywood career. I just want to say also that, you are a fantastic role model, and there aren't, especially coming from Hollywood, I don't believe there are very many people in that circle that are good role models, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for you because of it. And just doing some research on you before you got here, you've turned down scenes that involve nudity, that involve sex, for your faith, for respect out of your wife. I've not heard of anybody else doing that. Also, specific scenes that have to do with violence, from what I understand, you also turn those down. And it's just really refreshing to see somebody that can stand by their values with that amount of pressure in front of them and not fold. And I want to commend you for that.
Every film has something in it that a power, and then you go, okay, what's necessary, what's not necessary. It does not mean that I will not play the devil in a movie, but the difference is I don't go to the devil to ask him how to play him. I go to God to teach me how to play this, because when I do, it should unearth you. There was a film I did with Denzel Washington, Deja Vu, and that had a lot to do with it. And so I got to write my monologue, and piece in there with Denzel. Tony Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer allowed me to do it. But I looked at a lot of the, along the way, I've always got to work with really good agents, ATF, FBI, CIA, all, and I write notes down. And then I bring that back into the script. And when I got to watch some of the interrogations that I got to see, you always hear another voice coming out of these guys, like the devil speaking right through them, and talking about their destiny, their making their maker, their time, and I just would write a lot of that down, and I would pray deeply about it and going into the scene, because when an individual watches the movie, watching film, time suspends itself. You know, if I said you're going to sit in this room in that chair for 2 hours, but if the actors play it right, you're so entranced into the film that time just goes by like that. And so I'm still that 14, 15-year-old kid that watches a movie, and in my mindset say, what would keep me on the edge of my seat? What would keep me entranced into this character? And the Passion of the Christ was very brutal, especially when we went to the Cat of Nine Tails. Again, where I'm working with the best people in the world that are revealing to me, this is really what happened. So when we were looking at like the Shroud of Turin, you can see the Shroud of Turin is a image of Jesus. And when you start going into the track lines on his body, you can see the bamboo sticks the Romans would have used on him. But then you all see the deep ones where it looks like the Grand Canyon in your skin. And they I remember Keith Vanderland saying people will go into shock, Mel, when they see this. I mean, this is a Cat of Nine Tails. This is horrific. And he said, I'll take him to the edge. So it was very brutal. But in that particular case, that violence was important because that violence is our sin. So it's always about committing to what this film needs to be. If you use every profanity in the book constantly, eventually you get numb to it. But you use it once, it'll hit you if you need it, if it's necessary in the film. Like, for example, if you watched It's a Wonderful Life, that film was very profound in its time and very hard to watch. And during Christmas, the most beautiful time of year. And you don't want to drop an F-bomb in that movie, you know? But if you watch it, it's very powerful because this guy wants to end his life. It's over. He doesn't see what his value in his life, and this angel comes to him and shows him, George, don't you understand? If you weren't around, these people they would never have made it without you. We have to look at our lives like that. One of the most profound scenes in that movie was when Jimmy Stewart, Capra, had that camera on him. He says, God, if you're out there, please help me. And those were real tears. That man flew 26 missions in a Liberator over Germany, World War II. And you understand that when you're flying over in that tight formation and one of those planes goes out, everybody has to remain quiet on their comms. Stewart lived with PTSD his entire life, and especially in that scene. And I'm sure that trauma played out there, but God used it in the most beautiful way. Just as some of the trauma that I grew up with, God used it in the most profound way in films like Sound of Freedom or The Passion of the Christ.
When you got word about the project Passion of the Christ, it almost sounds like, well, how did you get word about that film?
Crazy. I mean, if you... so I get a call that I knew Mel Gibson was, but I did not know who Steve McAvity. And that was his key producer, main guy. That guy did Braveheart, which was the previous film Mel had directed 15 years earlier. And so they invited me to do a film I think it was Tom Hanks and Mel Gibson were going to do this together. It was on Mavericks. It was the big surfing wave. And the director that wanted to direct it was Kevin Reynolds, who just directed me in The Count of Monte Cristo. So I went to meet them, and Mel wasn't even supposed to show up, but he did about 40 minutes in. And we were talking about the movie. I didn't think the script was there yet. And I was going to be a hard film to shoot because I'm not a surfer, but I was a basketball player. So I thought maybe, anyway, but the material wasn't there. And I was talking to him about the material, and then all of a sudden Mel pivot to something. And then I went back to when I was a young man in the theater. And I said, oh my God, this is why he called me to become an actor. And I said, you want me to play Jesus, don't you? And he looked at me, he was smoking a cigarette, and he just, yeah, put his head down. And he was really scared. And I said, okay. He just, what? What? Like, how can you, what? Okay. So I had all that preparation.
What was the fear, do you think?
Well, 2 days later, he called me at my house, and I was taking the garbage out. And then I heard, I picked up the phone, and I said, yeah, I was busy. And he goes, hey, Jim, it's Mel. And I said, Mel who? And he goes, I don't know, Mel Brooks. Hey, he was smoking a cigarette, and he goes, do you still want to play this Jesus guy? If you do, you may never work in this town again. And I was like, scared. It scared me. I was telling you, I just bought a Lamborghini. And I was, I'm gonna have to give all this stuff back. And I was scared for a moment, and then this peace came over me. And I could feel it. It was from heaven. And I said, look, man, we're all called to carry our cross. If you don't pick up and carry your cross, you will be crushed by the weight of it. And then he got really quiet on the phone. And then I said, oh my God. He said, what? I said, I just realized my initials are JC and I'm 33 years old. And he goes, God, you're freaking me out. And he hung up the phone. And then McAvity came probably 5 days later. And then that was it.
Did Mel have fear too, to ask?
Sure he was.
What do you think his fear was?
None of us are good enough to do it. None of us are. It's because of who we are, our past, everything, what we're talking about. But the shame. But I told my friend about that. His name was Ivan. And I said, he said, Jim, God doesn't always choose the best, but he chose you. What are you going to do about it? I kept my rosary with me. I prayed. I took the Eucharist every day. And I went to confession every day. The rosary is awesome because you're meditating on the entire Gospels. And when I was up there on the cross, I would pick 10 people out of the audience, actually 11. The first one was the Our Father, and then I did 10 Hail Marys, but I continued to pray the sorrowful mystery as I was up there. So I started in the Garden of Gethsemane. I thought of the entire garden. Then I went to the scourging scene. I thought of the scourging scene, and I went from there to the crown of thorns, humiliation. And then, and I would just look at one thing because I couldn't feel my hands anymore. My hands were numb. At the end of the movie, my body's blue. And they brought a stand up, and this doctor came up, and he could hear my heart was in AFib. I would have to have 2 major heart surgeries, including open heart. and then I was struck by lightning on the last shot of the movie. And so I just kept going, but I remember hearing Jesus say to me, "Am I too close?" And I said, "You're not close enough." So I was at peace that, that if this happened, I felt like I did something in this life. I served my purpose.
Why would playing Jesus Christ destroy your relationship with Hollywood, or potentially destroy it? Why would they shun you?
Well, they did it immediately when I took the film. I was on all the studio lists. They have to answer that question.
That's sad.
The Christian bigotry is the most accepted form of bigotry there is. And they need to be called to task on it. Why? But here's the other thing. Why do we pay money to go to their shit? Why? Why support it anymore? If we, as Christians, said, that's it, and this is like, we need you on this film, Sound of Freedom, but because it's amazing. Now, I don't do faith-based films. I hate that. You know why? We never used it as a crutch on The Passion. And then all of a sudden we were the faith-based film. We never called ourselves faith-based. We were, here's a phenomenal movie. We can beat anybody in the world. We have the truth, right? The truth sets you free. Go to the film, see if it does. But now it's like, we made a faith-based film for you. And so you owe us your money. No, you don't. You don't put that and don't manipulate them. And that's another thing that is not Christianity, is that crap. Is like we're one of the club. I don't use that thing that I'm saved. I look at what Apostle Paul said. When you contemplate your salvation, do it in fear and trembling. That's how I look at it. And finish the race. My race isn't done. I've got a lot more to go. But I don't like that manipulation stuff. And Jesus is not a manipulator. And that is not Christianity at all. It needs to be authentic. Jesus is authentic. He's the most authentic thing that has ever existed.
Was that a tough decision for you at all? Or was it snap of the finger, I'm 100% in, no matter what happens?
The Passion? Yes, because of what happened in the movie theater when I was young, yeah.
We talked a little bit about spiritual warfare before
Yes.
We started recording, and with my new faith, I think it's my mission to spread the word, and it's already connecting me to people that I never would have been connected with before, like yourself, a couple other people that are coming on the show soon, and everybody that's around me that is a believer, that's close to me, has come to me and told me, be careful, you need to watch out. Eli Crane told me there are no free shots on target when you're talking about spiritual warfare, and that evil will start to try to seep into my life the louder I get about this. Did you experience anything like that?
That right there, what you're saying, that's garbage.
Okay.
And I want to tell you, Michael the Archangel is a patron saint to the Navy SEALs. Do you know this prayer? Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all these wicked spirits that move throughout the world. These entities will pay a high price when they dare get near God's children. And you're God's child. Your prayers, see, every time they do that, they risk being tossed into the furnace forever. And so this is their job. They serve underneath this wicked beast, and he's a beast. But we have to be, you're different. Jesus often references sheep all the time. And when Jesus goes and leaves to find that one rescue sheep, which I was, but I've gone to other levels. So what would that be? Well, when he's gone looking for that sheep, that lost sheep, he's got sheepdogs that got wolf in them. And then we'll kill any of them that come near those sheep. We defend them. We protect them. They're also wolves that have converted. And that's a different type of guy. That guy, he's lethal. So you've got the wolves coming in, you've got converted wolves, they know how they hunt, and then you got the sheepdog. This is how it's got to be, to take them out. And he's allowing us to step up like David. You know, I got this wrong the other day. It was Samuel. I said Jeremiah. It was Nathan, blah, 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 but it's Samuel. Samuel the prophet goes and finds this, is told that out of this man's home is going to be one of the heads of, is going to be the head of king of Israel. So he goes and meets all the boys, and he says, none of these are going to be the head of Israel. And then the father, he asks the father, by chance you have another kid? He says, yeah, out back. Can you imagine the father didn't even think nothing of his own son? David, he's outside, he's a sheep herder. It's nothing. Man, I want to be a sheep herder like that. I want to love God in a profound way that when I was 16 years old and they were talking smack about my God, that ain't going to happen around me. So I said, I'm going to go down and I'm going to kill this son of a bitch, Goliath. After I kill him, you're going to come around and take him out. But David was, what was profound, it was like, nobody talks about my father this way. Nobody. He loved him that much. Can you imagine? Our good God, he's not loved enough by us. He will gladly send his armies to protect us, but we don't love him enough. We have to be above the status quo of this modern day Christianity crap, which I'm telling you, this prosperity gospel is shit. Do you know that? You know, the Bible wants you to have beautiful things, man. That's fine if you can hand it all back. The things that I have in this life, my wife, my children, that family, that's it with God to me. I love beautiful things. I love Lamborghini and all that. But hey, listen, if I have to give it back, fine, done. It's over. So this, it's not authentic. And there are a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing in our, this modern day Christianity. It's fake. It's in the church, it's in the clergy, it's in the bishops, pastors. They'll tell you. But the one that hits me is the one where I know God's here, you know? I don't know you that long. I walked in here and I feel it already. I knew it the moment I met you. I said, you're going to know this guy for the rest of your life.
Thank you. Jim, reason I'm asking is there are some definite things that happened during that film that I would consider to be a deterrent, especially to weak people. You were electrocuted, struck by lightning. We talked about some of the other things that happened. We talked about, I mean, even from the beginning when you accepted it, you knew you were going to be shunned. Do you think that was a deterrent from the devil to keep you from doing this?
Sure. On the way up the hill, he said, "You're a dead man." And my response to him was, "Praise be to God."
This week's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey, everybody. We've all hit segments in life that become very tough to get through. And sometimes, on top of everything that you're going through, then you have tough decisions you got to make. Decisions with relationships like family, maybe your spouse, your friends, maybe even your kids, or maybe it's work related. Maybe you got drama going on at work. Maybe it's a career change. And the path forward, it's not always clear as day. This is where something like online therapy might be able to bring some clarity into your life on what the best path moving forward actually is. And I want to tell you about BetterHelp. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more you practice it, the easier it gets. If you're thinking of starting online therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, so it's convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map. With BetterHelp, visit betterhelp.com/Shawn today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Shawn. I want to give a big thank you out right now to all the Vigilance Elite patrons out there that are watching the show right now. Just want to say thank you guys. You are our top supporters and you're what makes this show actually happen. If you're not on Vigilance Elite Patreon, I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on in there. So, we do a little bit of everything. There's plenty of behind the scenes content from the actual Shawn Ryan Show. On top of that, basically what I do is I take a lot of the questions that I get from you guys or the patrons, and then I turn them into videos. So we get, right now, there's a lot of concern about self-defense, home defense, crimes on the rise all throughout the country, actually all throughout the world. And so we talk about everything from how to prep your home, how to clear your home, how to get familiar with a firearm, both rifle and pistol, for beginners and advanced. We talk about mindset. We talk about defensive driving. We have an end of the month live chat that I'm on at the end of every month where we can talk about whatever topics you guys have. It's actually done on Zoom. You might enjoy it. Check it out. And if Zoom's not your thing, or you don't like live chats, like I said, there's a library of well over 100 videos on where to start with prepping, all the firearm stuff, pretty much anything you can think of, it's on there. So anyways, go to www.patreon.com/vigilanceelite, or just go in the link in the description. It'll take you right there. And if you don't want to, and you just want to continue to watch the show, that's fine too. I appreciate it either way. Love you all. Let's get back to the show. Thank you.
I didn't want to live to see what was going to come from that movie anyway. It might be my only chance into heaven. Now, people can say, "Jim, you just don't know the Bible." Get out. It's what you do. Faith without your works is dead. 1 James. So many people say, but they don't do. And I was doing. And I felt good at what I had done and was doing. Now, fifth take, it was bizarre. The wind was blowing hard, and the clouds were. It felt like I could jump up and touch them, and that was very mystical. What was happening in the ground? You could feel something in the ground, and then the wind was blowing, and I couldn't. I could see everybody. There were about 350 people that were around me on a hill, and the wind was blowing, and then I couldn't hear the wind, and I could feel the suctioning occur. And then it was probably more like 3 seconds. It felt like 5, but it was probably less than that. And then boom, I shot me out of my body. I saw the back side, not here. And then I was back. Then Jan Michelini runs over, and I remember looking at him, and all of a sudden I saw his hand blow up. Sparks came out. There was another shot that came down. And then I was in shock. And then so I was on a lot of medication until 2009 was my first surgery at Stanford. And then my second one was at Cleveland Clinic in 2014. And that saved me, saved my life. I died on the operating table. I've never told that, but I died. Dr. Gillinoff, Dr. Griffin were my doctors. They witnessed it. They brought me back. But I was supposed to be here. But the reason why I brought that up is I felt incredible peace and love that's waiting for us.
When you died?
Yes. It was amazing. And I didn't, I had this, just hang on for a second. It was really calm. And then I saw the whole thing. It didn't hurt. The moment it was like taking an egg, cracking it, and then it just came out, and I was dead. I didn't have to breathe anymore. And I was looking at everybody running the room, and they were panicking. And they were doing stuff, but they were really scared.
Wow, you remember this?
No, I saw it. I watched the whole thing. And I watched everything. And then I saw them put the flaps on, and then when I came back, that's when it hurt. But I heard the horn go off. And it didn't hurt my ears. But it was like when I first met God, when he asked me to become an actor, I felt this great peace and love. The reason why I'm talking about it right now is because so many people don't have the peace. They don't have the love. And when I was on the cross, Jesus, he says 7 things. And he says, woman, behold your son. To John, he says this. John, behold your mother. In Aramaic, woman is inthatha. And then he calls her also Emi, mother. He differentiates. People have to say, why? And the woman is Genesis. I will put enmity between the woman's seed and his. And the Mother Mary is the ark. She carries the Son of God to us. And she is the most beautiful thing there's ever been. And he asks me to love. I'm obeying Jesus. I'm obeying him. Jim, why don't you go to Jesus? Because I'm obeying Jesus when he told me to take the mother and the sons of Zebedee were at the foot of the cross. The mother of Zebedee, James and John, their mother was there. I'm sure she went, wait, I'm the mother. Jesus often talks about who's my brother, who's my sister, And he also says, I didn't come to bring peace into this world. I came like a sword to divide. And that's the generational sin that's passed on. A lot of us lose our own families. He says, who's my brother? You're my brother. We're not of the same DNA, but we're adopted under God. You're my adopted brother, my sister, family. We can have new families, people that support us in our love for him. And you'll find that, it's like how Jesus found these fishermen to lead the church. My God, it's incredible. Still looking for good fishermen, still looking for good Davids.
When you had that out-of-body experience on the operating table, when you were revived, was there Was there any time for feeling, oh man, I don't know if I want to go back? Or was it just all of a sudden snap of the finger and you're back?
There's an intelligence with the soul that's bizarre. It knows the distance when God lands in a room. Why that's significant? It just is. Your soul knows another language. So the moment I died, I could feel and understand this. Hang on a second. We've got this kind of a thing.
Okay.
But you're dead. It's all good. But on that side, it's like nothing. It's amazing, you know. And I had an experience when I was doing the Passion, and Jesus visited me a couple times. It was pretty amazing. And one of them was, he was off the left side of my bed, and he was weeping. And it was extraordinary because I was so cold. I had a crucifix, the true cross, in my left hand. It was chained around my wrist, and I was hypothermic, so it was over 90 degrees in the room, and I had tons and tons of clothes on, and I was shaking. And it hurt to shake because my shoulder was torn. And I looked over the left side of my bed, and there he was. And I didn't hesitate. I didn't go, oh my gosh, I'm having an apparition here. I just went, why is my Lord weeping? And I got on my bed and I put my arms around him. And I said, Lord, what's wrong? And he pointed to the ground. And on the ground were all of these cards, jacks, kings, and queens. No number cards, just jacks, kings, and queens. And they had all these face cards all over. And their faces were death faces. Jesus says, I am the vine, you are the branches. You live in me, live for eternal life, you know. But when the leaf separated from the tree, that was their death mask, right before they entered into hell. These people were giving incredible gifts all throughout time. And they started with 1 for me, 9 for God, 2 for me, 8 for God, and eventually 9 for me, 1 for God, and then all for me. This is how the game works. And I knew that he was telling me when I asked him, I don't want them to see me, I only want them to see you. I believe he was warning me. Do you understand that where this could go? Because there's going to be a version of you going to heaven, and then there's a version of you going to hell. And I said, I will never betray you. I know what Peter said. I've learned from them. I will not do that to you. So when you asked me earlier, you've done this, 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 this. Yes, those are good things. But you don't want to have a 0 in your life. 1 times 0 is 0. But so is 1,000,000,000 times 0. You lose everything. So it's a daily thing. And finish the race and finish it strong.
That's a great way to put it. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Let's move into your latest project, Sounds of Freedom, with Tim Ballard. How did that come about?
By making the right decision today. Tim Ballard saw The Count of Monte Cristo, and that was a rough one. That was a hard film, because there was a point there where they removed God from the screenplay, and I asked them to put it back in, and they did. But the scenes were too long. They had to be shortened. But that God will give me justice was not in there when I got the rewrite, when I came to Ireland to shoot it. That had to go back in. So I was the wrong guy for the movie unless they put it back in. Thankfully they did. So that's the film that Tim saw. The other film was The Passion, and he was profoundly moved by those two films. Now, because of the trouble I got in after The Passion, when they clearly said this is an anti-Semitic film, and I clearly said that Jesus is a Jew, and we have science behind this, I've done nothing wrong. And this film is a righteous film. And look at the public. They love this movie. Why will you not allow me to work in this town? Okay, now I did get parts. I had friends that gave me great favors and helped me along. But it wasn't the same from that point on. Now, Tim Ballard saw those two films. And had I not made the decision, I'd never, been a part of it. But again, when God asked me, I'd like you to be an actor, it wasn't going to be easy. This was going to be one of the hardest things I've ever done. And it just short of The Passion. But it was the hardest thing because of the children. Now, Tim Ballard came to me. First was Eduardo Verostegui, the producer of the movie, and Alejandro Monteverdi, the director, both very talented and both extremely needed in this particular team. It required a producer that was going to lose all the money on the movie, and we were finished. Disney was going to buy Fox. So Disney, obviously, when they saw this movie, there are executives that want the film. But they're, eventually the bad one out, and this is not something they want to represent their company. Count of Monte Cristo, okay, but not this one. They did not want me for this role. Whoever it was at Fox, when Tim met with them, and he said, no, I gotta have this guy. This is who I want. So I met those three individuals, and that led us to go down to Colombia. And my wife just saw a movie or a show called Narcos, and she didn't want me anywhere near down there in this particular time when we were down there. It was crazy. And Tim said, well, tell Carrie, my wife, that Jim will have 30 Navy SEALs around him. Sure, some of them are Rangers and Delta too, but anyway. They always say SEAL teams. But anyway, one day I was at work. She gets on the phone. She calls me, and she goes, do you have protection around there? I said, oh, yeah. And I don't know, maybe only 2 today. Where are they? They told me. And well, in this particular moment, they were on a mission. They took down a really big group of guys, and they saved 200 children while we were filming. So it wasn't the safest place. We were at one point, we were in cartel and area, and where we were shooting, I went to go get my sunglasses, and I had guys like you coming up to me and going, you can't ever do that again. They'll pick you up here in a heartbeat. And we were in their territory.
What part of Colombia were you in?
Bogota, Cartagena, Santa Marta, and then Medellin.
Oh, you did quite the tour.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't know a whole lot about the film as it's not out yet, but it's about, from my understanding, it's about the life of Tim Ballard, what he's doing, and what he's doing is saving children all across the world from being sex trafficked, exploited sexually.
Yeah, so he CIA moves to Homeland Security, and the frustration is he's getting these pedophiles and these traffickers, but he's not able to save the children. That's what he really wants to do. They were down in Calexico, and where they took down the guy, Ernst Limpaczynski, the guy that I come in one of the worst pedophiles I've ever seen. And they picked this guy up, and this little boy, about 5 years old, and he says, "Will you save my sister?" And that is a question. It's like a mark on his heart, and he couldn't. It's like the Bible where Jesus says, "The kingdom of heaven, it's like a pearl. He would sell everything, do anything to attain this." That's what he did. He went down to Colombia, sold his house to hit the money, what he had out. He was 10 days of getting his pension, and he goes down to Colombia to find this little girl. So it's like,
That's what Tim did?
yeah, that's what he did.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So it's taken, the film, but with a huge heart, you know.
So is the entire film in Colombia?
Yes. Well, I mean, we shot it, parts in the U.S. and Calexico at the border
Okay.
as well.
Let's talk about some facts
Sure.
that go into sex trafficking. It's considered a modern form of slavery. The United States is the #1 consumer and producer of child abuse content. The Department of Homeland Security estimates that child trafficking has an annual global profit of $150 billion. Human trafficking has already passed the illegal arms trade and is going to pass the drug trade. About 2 million children are trafficked every year worldwide. That's how serious this is. That's just a few.
But that's just the
facts.
beginning of it all. I mean, the trafficking, it's first part to the public. You know, I've learned you get too far in front of the narrative, they don't believe you. If you were talking about trafficking around 290, when I was doing Monte Cristo, you never heard about it. And it'd be conspiracy theorists.
Do you think this is getting bigger, or do you think that the information is just getting out? Do you think, I guess what I'm asking, do you think it was always this?
I think it's much bigger.
You think
than
it's
that.
growing?
Oh, I think it's already bigger than that. I think it's much bigger because I've talked to Tim about the numbers from other guys and then gone over to Tim and goes, yeah, I mean, those are good numbers and everything, but it's bigger than that because there's other forms of the business.
This is just what we know.
Yes, on that part. I mean, it's we've been talking about 6 million. 2 million at least are also involved in the organ harvesting and all the other shit that's the stuff that it's just beyond. They're cattle. These are cattle. It's like buying cows. What do you do with a cow? You know, you milk them, you do it, but you also eat the meat and all that other stuff. And it's far worse than people are willing to go to. But listen, it's not going to solve the problem by people. This is an analogy. I was swimming in the ocean. I got into swimming and everything, and on the Ridley Scott movie, and I swam, and it was kind of freeing, you know, breaking the surf and doing all that. But just that when you're, you know, I don't know how many hundreds of feet down or how deep you are, some great white shark looking at you and going, "Is that a seal? What is?" And I say, "God, please tell them I'm a human then, or something they shouldn't mess with." But anyway, I just I would pray in the water, you know, just and of course the common sense in me is like, you know, you have a better chance of going down an airliner. But anyway, I went out and was filming in South Africa, and I got to dive great whites. It was fascinating. And every time we'd chum the water, and then we'd throw a tuna head out, and the great white would come by. He never just munched it, ever, never, not once. They always bumped. And so I guarantee you that if you were in the water and you got bumped by a great white, the guy said to me, "What do you think they're doing?" He says, they have a little brain. Yours is bigger than theirs. You have to be smarter than them. And he said, yeah, but I said, some of these fish, they're like whales, they're like 2 tons. And he says, do you think they went to school in the morning, mate? Do you think they sat there and said, you weigh 4,000 pounds, he's only 200 pounds? No, you have to be smarter than them. So what do you do if a great white bumps you? And I said, well, I'd be scared and I would swim to shore. Oh, and he says, you know how fast they can swim in the water? He says, at 40 miles an hour. So the fastest swimmer in the world can outswim this. So that's the smart guy. Now, he's actually the dumb guy. And when you splash, 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 you are saying, come eat me. It's exciting him. He said, oh, your food. Okay. It's nothing personal. Yeah, but he's going to have to eat you. So if you program it in your brain that you're swimming and you think about it a lot, what would you do? And he bumped you. If you immediately attacked him, because it's only an instant that he bumps you, and you scratch his eyeball or grab his gill, he's gone. Doesn't want to mess with you, because these sharks, these great whites in the womb, if there's 7 babies in there, the winner is the one that eats all of them. That's how they're born. That's how they are fed in the womb. Then they're born and they come out fighting. And so they know if they don't know what you are, they're going to bump you to see what you do. So think of that when it comes to children. All right, you have 4 children. It's 4th of July. You're sitting outside there and you don't want to know about all the bad things that are going on. Your child's taken. You're never going to see that child again. Now, go to that mother and father and ask them, would you have wished you had some sort of plan that could have prevented that from happening? They're going to say yes, but they won't. They won't do it. And if you just looked around, the film is powerful because when you watch it, you learn, oh, these are the warning signs. This is how routinely it occurs. This is what they're looking for. Then when you're looking, and it's what I talked about earlier, God here, it's like Michael the archangel, you're with you, and you're a stalker. You're a predator. You're letting them know. You'll go after them. And they don't want anything to do with this. So the great white walks away. No more trouble. No more. Why people don't do this, I don't understand. But this is not the Bible that I know, that I read. We have to weaponize ourselves from God's shield and his protection and stop being afraid of the devil. Do you know more Christians, these modern day Christians, are more afraid of the devil than they are of God? Let me explain. God could kill the devil without a glance. The devil has no chance against God. This isn't it, God here and the devil here, Jesus here and the devil here. It's this. It's more like, here's a creature, devil, here's a creature, human. What are we? I'm going to ask Almighty to come into me and to not be afraid. We talked about it earlier. Jesus, in Scripture, 365 times, one time every day in the Bible, says, do not be afraid.
There's a reoccurring theme here, and it's overcoming fear. From talking to you about your childhood, doing the Passion, doing this, now Great Whites, now the Bible. We talked, you'd brought up organ harvesting, and that's something I didn't realize that we were going to get into that. Is that in the film? Did we talk about that in the film?
No. It doesn't go into that.
Okay.
We don't go into that.
Okay.
We go into the trafficking part of it. It's the going into what I had to look at to get to where I needed to go. So I have many agents that I've worked in 30 years, my career, that trust me, that have worked with me. And when I was reading the script, I wanted to know about Tim Ballard. How is all of this true? Yes. Okay. So then working with people that could give me information that can make this screenplay a lot deeper. And going through that is where I got in some, it was beyond how bad this really is.
So you really wanted to understand every aspect of what's going on before.
So I did a movie called Frequency and got to see things I couldn't believe. You know, just seeing a person that's dead and how they die and what it looks like is fascinating. And then how jaded these guys are when they stick Bengay in their noses and go into a room and you can taste stench. I mean, you can taste it. I worked on a farm in Hanford, California, and you know, my job was to get the cattle in the chutes, and the vets would, you know, put these vaccinations in them, and every now and then, one of these big heifers would die, so we'd tie wire around their hooves and, you know, drag them out, and it was so hot when we went back. Next day, the stench was beyond anything. Now you put human beings in there. And so, like, okay, so when I go and do a film, you playing these guys, you get to see what they're like. You get to see how they talk. And one guy's eating a sandwich while that stench is in the room and doesn't even bug him. You know, one of my buddies was pulling something out of a river, and it was just horrid. And he's eating a bagel with cream cheese in it, and his locks. He's just, you know, he's like, "Are you kidding me? You're eating right now?" He goes, "I'm hungry." But that's so important, because you can't. That's stuff that you got to put in the screenplay. You know, that has to be there, and you kind of understand who they are, where they've been, and everything. And I always go to mass and I pray and everything, and I'm always looking at a corpus on a cross. And eventually, you know, my life, unlike you, I know I'm gonna die someday, but we all are gonna die, right? So, you know, I wanted the people to have the most real experience that they could have on the screen to a certain point, you know. And then the other balance is when you walk out of this film, your heart's on fire. This thing's unbelievable. It's an incredible movie. So we can't show you all that stuff that I've seen, but I can take you right to the edge, Alfred Hitchcock, and to understand how real it is. And one of the big things I was going through is Tim couldn't keep any of these agents for long because it was so bad with kids. And so there's a scene in there. So the stuff that I did get to see that made me weep, I started thinking about that. And so what we did, and for those of you who are going to see this movie and don't want to know about this part, then shut your tell them. Mm-hmm. But we were shooting this, and I had this idea where we took the camera, and this particular scene, you don't see it, but this video, this man goes over and rapes this little girl. And
how old?
7. And you don't see it in the film, but you see him start to make the move. And then I asked the DP not to tell Alejandro, the director, this, but I asked him shoot. So I took the video monitor and moved it into my eyeball so you could see my iris. So the eyeball is, 20 feet in a movie theater, and you see it start to sweat, and you don't know, you can't quite make out what's going on. And then the eyeball, from what I'd seen, and the screaming is the hardest thing.
The sound of it.
So the sound of freedom, there's a sound that you hear from these little ones that is so horrific that you'll never forget it. And for 2 years, I could never forget it. I had a friend of mine that came to my house, and in the morning, she's weeping, and she came over, her name is Debbie. She was hugging me. Why? I said, what's wrong? You were bawling. Really? What was I doing? So I had been sleeping, and I go to this dark place. My body had to process this out in my dreams. And a lot of them I don't remember. But I had to pray deeply. But it motivated me to want to get these sons of bitches. And this is where I say it's the only unforgivable sin. And they don't deserve to live any longer what they've done. Jesus says, better a millstone be hung around their necks, that they be cast into the sea, that you should ever hurt one of these little ones. So, the film is fantastic that way. It's powerful. It's no studio can make this film. This is the movie they don't want you to see, and especially the devil doesn't want you to see this. But when you are done, people don't get up from the theater. They sit like they did in The Passion, like they did in Schindler's List. You cry. You're going to laugh. You're going to do all this stuff, but there's a huge adventure. Be on the edge of your seat. But eventually, when enough people walk out of this, they're going to start looking at, wait a minute. This Miss Rodas on April 26 gave testimony, sworn testimony, that 85,000 children disappeared across the border. Just disappeared. Where did they go? And then you start wondering, wait a minute. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Public is now going, hey, 3-letter agencies, what do you really know about what's going on here? And I think most Americans are waking up to the fact they know what the hell is going on.
How long did you immerse yourself in that environment to understand understand how profound this problem is?
1 day.
It only took 1 day.
No, on that part, 1 day. Not even that. Just, I couldn't take it. But I had to understand what he was going through. And I didn't know it was going to go there. It was more like, are you sure you want to go further than this? And I saw this movie a long time ago called Silent Scream. They were saying the baby in the womb screams when they tear it apart, they pull it out. That was hard to watch. And from that point on, I was always pro-life after seeing that. But the difference is, on the outside, you get to hear him scream. And now the only way to combat that is to get them. And so my weapon is acting. My weapon is film. And I can use that and be the voice in that film through Tim and from God coming in. And it's a most important film since The Passion of the Christ. These are films that will never be forgotten. I remember when Tim came down and asked me how it was going, and I said, we have lightning in a bottle. Well, you think it's gonna come out? No, it's taken us several years to get this thing out. And the devil didn't want this one out. But too late now.
What kind of deterrence did you encounter during this film? It was like I had a friend of mine that survived.
Immaculée Ilibigeza. She survived Rwanda. She said for 12 weeks she was living in a bathroom. And they killed over 1 million people in a short period of time. I wouldn't say it's that, but before Rwanda occurred, she said it was like an evil, like Christmas in reverse for those 12 weeks in Rwanda when that was going on. And so prior to that, before the Day of Reckoning, it was when you would go down the street and you would hear them saying, they'd come up to you. So if you're in Mexico, they would say, do you want niños? You want mujeres, women. And the cigars would have tried to find, but when you go down to Colombia, they would be like, you want mujeres, women, and then they would say, you want niñas, little boys, little girls. So you got to see like that. And then when they were doing the film, they were running operations down there while we were there. Tim also, there's a gal, the villain in the film, she's a real character. She was out of prison at that time. And so you got pressure from the people to arrest, and then the ones on the inside, and I'm sure from the world that's involved in this, because I think it goes all the way to Planned Parenthood, the jugs of plastic containers they use the children. I think those go to the biolabs. And I should say that I know they do that. They send them to places like that all over the world. These biolabs, I think this is part of the whole business.
What do they do with them in the biolabs when they receive them?
Well, either making the adrenochrome or they're using it to, from what I was told, is that, and also for making agents to, kill people with it. So, if I'm a half Irish, half Swiss, they can get my DNA code and create a cocktail, put it off in an airplane, and I'm the only one that dies of a heart attack in the plane. And then you watch a James Bond movie, and you go, boy, that's really weird. So.
Wow.
Again, this is way, way ahead of the public narrative. But, I talked to some, this is not something where it's suggested to me that this is probably why this world cabal is involved in all of this stuff. And it has a lot to do with the blood of our children. The public is now awakening to the trafficking, but eventually leads you to other places like Epstein Island. And in this film, we showed it to about 1,500 people in Las Vegas. And during a certain part of the film, they were all talking in the audience. There was like 5 showings every single time, talking. So at the end of it all, I thanked them all for coming, and then I said, "Why, during this part, you were talking?" And they all yelled out, "Epstein Island." And I said, now I understand why they don't want this to be seen.
That's heavy.
It's listed in the NIH, adrenochrome. Organ harvesting is another whole. That's when the whole thing went off with me with Tim Ballard, when he started talking to me about that. But again, we don't go into that in the film. The film is phenomenal. I probably just chased away millions of people from wanting to watch this movie.
No, you didn't.
The film, the film is like It's a Wonderful Life. It's what? This is about what and how? Yeah, I know. What does this have to do with the tea in China? It is, if you weren't around Tim Ballard, none of these children are going to live. And as hard as it has been for him, he was willing to take it in the heart for Jesus. And King David, when David was a boy, same thing. And I was the same thing. And God doesn't make junk, but he can use things that you've been through in your past. And he can take you to a level that it's supernatural. It's just no way to explain it. I was the best I ever was on that movie because I was unafraid. And that love is the greatest in its form, highest form, is the best you'll ever be if you get to that place that you give your life for and I'd give my life for these kids. And that's what it did.
We're not chasing anybody away with this audience. We had spoke about, I just did an episode with this guy, Ryan Montgomery, who's an ethical hacker, and he's unveiling, he weighs about 85 pounds, and he's going after these guys by himself. Now he's moving into other organizations, and it was the fastest growing episode that I've ever had. And that's saying a lot because we've had some really big ones, and this kid came out of nowhere. He's got, how do I say this? He doesn't have a lot of clout around him. Nobody's ever heard of him. And it just sparked the interest of everybody. And with this film, do you think this film is going to bring truth, but also educate kids, parents on how this is happening, where it starts, and put the fear into people, into pedophiles and predators that are targeting these children?
I don't know. I was reading this thing, and I would absolutely say it's 100% the truth. They will never be able to walk down the street again. That's coming, without a doubt, and it will be a great day. This needs to be done. This is the worst time in the history of all humanity right now we're living in. You know, when you read biblical times, we're 8.5 billion people on this earth. Biblical times, not that many people, but when you read Moses, they killed the babies. During the time of Jesus, Herod, they killed the babies. They tried to annihilate them. It's the same thing, same devil. And this is going to end. I know it, but whether I live, that I would give my life to make this end. And that's where I'm completely connected to Tim in this role. And King David, or David, is the 16-year-old. And that, you know, God could come to us and, you know, be from small towns and just say, you know, all you got to do is cry out to God and ask him, what's my purpose in this life? And certainly it can't be one of being afraid and to trust Jesus that he's got you, man. You know, I know that a lot of people out there right now have recently had my dear friends who committed suicide, And a lot of people want to know, if God loves them or not. I heard this a long time ago, and it goes, your name may not appear down here in this World's Hall of Fame. In fact, you may be so unknown that no one knows your name. The Oscars and the praise of men may never come your way, but don't forget God has rewards that he'll hand out someday. This crowd on earth, they will soon forget when you're not at the top. They'll cheer like mad until you fall, and then their praise will stop. Not God, he never does forget. And in his Hall of Fame, by just believing on his Son, forever there's your name. I tell you, friend, I wouldn't trade my name, however small, that's written there beyond the stars in that celestial hall. For all the famous names on earth or the glory that they share, I'd rather be an unknown here and have my name up there.
Thank you for saying that. When is this coming out?
4th of July.
We'll link everything below. It's a heavy topic.
The things we talked about can all be verified. So all you fact checkers out there, these fact checkers, you go to college for that, get a master's degree in fact checking. Don't stop falling for this fact checking stuff. They need to meet my fact checkers. One of them, and we mentioned him earlier. Verify all the stuff that I've told you. So those guys, they should be terrified of those guys.
Fact checking's turned into suppression.
Yes, it is. Bingo.
Do you think you'll continue this fight with the children after this film's released?
Oh, I'll never stop. Because of my own children, my own adopted children, I was very aware of the dangers and the pains I've gone through on a global scale, just through the adoption agencies and everything. You have to verify people when they come in and, we help save children. Pfft. A lot of these guys are honey potters. They come in they're wolves in sheep clothing. So, and they're not there to save the children. They're there to take the children, make money off them.
I think we need to get Tim Ballard in here.
Yeah.
Tim as well. What's next for you, Jim? I know you have
Resurrection.
I
would think so, or Sound of Freedom too. But as far as the industry, it's a different thing now because if you want to win an Academy Award, you have to have an L, a G, a B, a T, a Q, plus something, and that's just it's insane. Some of the greatest films of all time would never qualify for the Academy anymore.
Well, I think the clout of all those awards is diminishing very rapidly.
Yes.
Amongst the public, and we're seeing that.
Oh,
with
it's
everything.
coming out. People are. Look at Buddy Light, man. I used to drink that all the time. I'll drink regular water or my own piss before I touch that.
Good for you. The Resurrection.
Yeah.
When does that start? Has it started?
Yeah. Oh, the writing. Yes. I asked him, "Would you be ready to go in January?" He said, "Yeah, maybe." So how about the end of the fall? He goes, "Yeah, maybe." September? I said, "Yeah, maybe." He's so funny because last time he did that, I said, "Okay, well, won't be till January," and then all of a sudden I get the call, "Hey, you ready?" And we went in September, October. So who knows? I know he's working on that right now. He's doing a movie with Wahlberg So he's finishing that, but he's been on this for a long, long time. And then it will be the biggest film in history. It might be 2 films. Could be 3, but I think it's 2.
I can't wait. I cannot wait for that. And then you have another project coming out as well. Sounds like it's going to be a 4-part docuseries, if I'm correct.
That's Tim's. They haven't come to me for that yet.
Okay.
But, yeah. But they wrote this second Sound of Freedom, and that's even better script than the first. The first is pretty darn good. So there's that.
Can I ask what that's about?
The second one?
Yes.
Haiti.
It's about Haiti.
Yeah.
Why is Haiti specifically?
Because he went down there and did that operation down there. So it's just like, it's not so much Sound of Freedom 2. Okay, it's just, this is the next mission that he did.
Okay. Okay, so this is gonna keep going.
Well, based on the success of this film, the people love it enough, the demand's there, the screenplay is there. I mean, it always is the screenplay, everything, at the level of it. And then at that point, it's a lot of prayer, and these aren't easy. I don't get the easy ones.
Yeah.
Learning Aramaic was crazy hard.
How do you manage all this personally? I mean, you're taking on a lot of weight covering this type of, or being a part of this type of a topic with sex trafficking.
I have nowhere else to go. This is where I go back to the movie theater. It was like, take the ones I give you, okay. But I didn't know I could do this. I just believe in him. Before I even believe in myself, I believe in him. And if he says I can do it, I know I can, because he says it. It's the difference between actors that I work with that are phenomenal. They think the talent came from them. Mine came from God. Now, I'll boast in my talent from God any day. I'm not afraid of any actor in the world. But again, it keeps me simple, in just, it keeps me away from getting too haughty-taughty and just being ready, to. Humility is Mother Teresa said humility comes from humiliation. So when I get humiliated, and the last 2 years on the adrenochrome was quite humiliating. But I knew one day the truth is coming, and it's coming. So, and as I said, I'm not the easiest guy to love. My wife will tell you that, but, I am loved. And I've got my children that I love, and they love me, So I've got a good thing there.
There are rumors out that you and Mel Gibson are going to come together to expose some of the stuff that's going on in Hollywood. Is there truth to that?
Not really.
Okay.
I think what you're seeing right now is, he did his part, I'm doing mine.
I'm glad you're doing it. Nobody else is going to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Jim, I just want to say it was a real honor to have you in here today, and I appreciate the conversation and the time, and most of all, thank you for being a good role model and somebody that kids can look up to, adults can look up to, and find some solid direction.
Can I say something to your audience?
Absolutely.
Mila thioloko marehe mahaki hita. Hita hivu dinaletina. Kokavel diana afef lakom. Antun hita hivu lakom. My commandment to you is this. You love one another as I have loved you. So you love one another. God love you. Thank you.
Amen. Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.